Hey, I'm Jenny,
And I'm Hillary, and you can call us,
the Garden Tarts.
kissing lips and breaking hearts.
We have been bestest friends for over 25 years, and we love to talk you too.
We've had some super ridiculous adventures, and now this podcast, which is pretty much all opinion with a handful of facts thrown in.
Why a U2 podcast? Because as much as we love talking U2, we know you do too.
So sit down, grab a drink, and find us on Instagram and Twitter so we can chat.
Well, hey, Hillary, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's 2020.
I can't even believe it. Shouldn't we have flying cars and stuff by now?
According to the Jetsons, yes.
Yeah. So, Happy New Year. We haven't been here in a while.
This is our first new episode of the new year.
Yes, it is. And I would like to introduce our podcast buddy tonight, my little brother, Jeremy.
Hello. Hi.
We're so glad to have you.
He's hailing
I'm sorry, did the Jetsons take place in 2020?
Something like that.
What year was the Jetsons?
We'll find out real quick.
1970s or something?
Yeah, I think it was the 1970s. What year was
I feel like that's really important information.
The implication of the Jetsons, by the way, is the world exploded, right? There's no Earth anymore.
So the Jetsons took place in 2062.
Oh, okay.
So we got time.
That makes so much more sense now.
Hang on, folks. We just have 42 more years.
Yeah, we'll get
there. And we'll have our flying cars.
I'm looking forward to it.
So some of you that have been listening to all of our episodes may remember an ep that we had a really hard time recording and had to re-record. Was that Unforgettable Fire?
It was.
Jeremy joined us originally for that, and it just had to be redone. No fault of Jeremy's.
Just like the Unforgettable Fire, right?
But it was a very hard episode. So we are glad to have you back, Jeremy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Where are you?
All my technology.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from sunny Washington, D.C., in the Columbia Heights neighborhood, in a room that was set up to be an office but will shortly be a nursery. So I got to take all this stuff apart soon.
That's very exciting.
DC is great these days, just like on TV.
Cheers to that. And what are you drinking in DC tonight?
I'm drinking just some good old-fashioned Dickel rye. We have Drizzly. Do you guys have Drizzly where you're at?
Not that I know
of. It's a website.
You
put together a booze order and someone brings it to your house in an hour.
We don't have that in Virginia for sure.
I guess Virginia can't do that.
No, you can't do any of that in Virginia.
I have never heard of such a thing. I will look it up just in case.
Drizzly. I think it's
it's totally cool for us to have, Klan rallies and stuff, but we can't have
no booze,
alcohol delivered.
Yeah, well, the risk of being too political, though, we got some people living in this town that ain't so great either, so we got to deal with them too.
Yeah, political's okay. We approve. When you go to Garden Tart Amanda's house for her husband's birthday, you get to do a shot called the Dickel Pickle.
Ooh.
Ew.
Is that Dickel with pickle juice in it?
Yes.
I would do that. Stop. I've never had that before, but sign me up.
They really love it. I haven't had it yet, but one year I will. And this year they did the Dickel pickled herring.
Dickel pickle pairing?
They pickled herring juice.
Oh yeah, pickled herring. Get it.
And everyone instantly was like, that was the worst idea I've ever had in my whole entire life.
That sounds so disgusting.
When I hear Dickel rye, the only thing I can think of is Armanda and Steve.
There's used to be a restaurant in DC that is no more, but they used to have a pickled herring martini in the restaurant. I used to live right around the corner. I used to go there a lot, and I would order that a lot, expecting to like it, and I never liked it. It was terrible.
None of that surprised me.
Yeah. I won't go into more detail about what was in it, but it was gross.
Remember though, Jeremy, when we were little and we went to the synagogue, we went to shul, and the little old men would, before Kiddush, before the after services little lunch, they would go into the locker rooms and get their booze and do shots before we went in.
No, I did not. I do not remember that
Oh, I
at
can't.
all.
You don't remember that at all? God,
No.
you're so young.
I wish I did. I can picture all of them doing it, but I do not recall that.
All the little old men would go in there and in their lockers.
Yeah, they probably had schnapps.
Was a dick
lot.
rye?
A lot of them did, but I'm just saying they could have multitasked that with the herring that was
Yeah, I
there.
Oh.
That's where I was going with all of that. They did have schnapps,
Yeah, I'm sure it
peppermint
was all
schnapps.
schnapps.
That was like, but I remember Papa going in there and
Oh man,
yeah.
I wish I could have done that. But I mean, not when I was, 8, like as a grown up.
I remember that they had those lockers and they had the little paper cups like the Kiddush for wine.
Yeah.
Like the little bathroom cups for water,
Right, like that for like mouthwash.
For like
Which
mouthwash.
is essentially what schnapps is
Right.
unflavored mouthwash.
So essentially, we should all come to your synagogue.
We don't have that anymore.
Yeah, it's all those people are dead now.
No, all those people are dead now.
Yes.
Oh, and the tradition did not carry on.
No.
I'm gonna bring it back though.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back. But
Let's
then that
bring
would
it
mean
back.
we have to actually go to the synagogue. Which
That means we have to go to
Step
synagogue.
one,
Bring it
Start
back.
tradition. Or step one.
Jenny,
A, start tradition. Step C, show up at synagogue. What's B?
So Jenny and I actually had a drinking adventure after going to temple for Shabbat in Dublin. We went and had Irish coffee after.
Nice.
That was our kiddush. That was our after services lunch. I didn't say the blessing on it though.
I think it was implied.
It was implied.
Yeah, you're in
sure.
Ireland, so everything has a blessing on it there already.
It's already
true.
there.
Yeah.
We've all been blessed
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
some form or another.
Yeah.
So, Hillary, what are you drinking in Virginia?
I am drinking Screwball peanut butter whiskey again.
What a surprise. I'm also drinking Screwball Peanut Whiskey, and I thought I had enough for this episode, and now it's almost done.
I'm sorry. Here, I can
Pour me some.
I can
I
pour
wish that
some.
worked.
Yeah.
I wish that
Yeah,
worked.
I don't think
Does
that.
anyone have any pickle juice? Can you text me some pickle juice to go with my dickle? Is that how the internet works?
Don't make me spit out my Screwball. But anyway, we were going to come back at 2020 going strong with our Rattle and Hum episode. And Jeremy said, but what if I want to interview you all? I don't know if that's how it went, but that's how it went in my mind.
Close enough.
And so we said, okay, let's start with that. So
But
here
also, I am slightly avoiding Rattle and Hum.
we are. I keep listening
It's
to
gonna
it.
be so hard. I don't want to do it. Can we just skip on through?
Rattle
Last
This is one that they made the movie of, right? The black and white movie.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's just, I think the episode is going to be fun to make. It's just a lot of work getting there.
It's a whole
Yeah.
lot. You should see that workbook.
Remember that
made a
time in the
workbook
90s
for
where everybody
every
was
episode.
making black and white documentaries? Like Madonna had one. Is that it?
You
though?
two,
Does
though,
he
beat
choose Madonna?
them. You two beat Madonna by a lot, though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe not a lot, but a handful of years.
We'll get to it. We're going to hunker down and get it done.
Yeah.
Because I'm just intimidated by the amount of work because it's the album and the movie. But we'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
We'll just pretend it's New Year's Eve and we'll just laugh at it. And my kids will say, why are you making fun of people so much?
Yes. So this is a story, Jeremy, and everyone else who's listening. I often go to Cleveland for New Year's. Our tradition is to watch Rattle and Hum, and, it's pretty dated, and their hair and outfits and stuff are a little interesting. So one year, after we had some drinks and watched some Rattle and Hum, and we were like, oh, what is he wearing? And
You were really bad.
we were mean.
You were really mean.
And Jenny's daughter Grace asked us why we were so mean, and we just all like froze for a second, like, oh crap, we really are mean, and that's why we have this podcast. So we have a forum for our
a child-free forum
where you can be mean to your favorite band.
We work so hard. I work so hard to not nitpick people in front of our kids. Like, it's, people can wear what they want and look how they want to look and this and this and that, and you shouldn't judge or critique or any of this or that. And
yeah,
we were not kind.
No, oh but when you work hard to look that bad, come on.
What year did that come out?
But the kids don't know that. The kids don't get it.
Yeah.
What year did that movie come out?
1989.
They were the best looking people in 1989. Everybody looked terrible, including all three of us in 1989.
I did not. I'll show you a picture.
I've seen pictures of you. You looked older then than you do now.
I know I did. I tried.
I've been told that like I look way younger now than I ever did.
It was also when I had my old nose. I did not have a nose job. I have no idea what happened to my nose.
Your nose just completely changed.
It just changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my old
sure
nose.
You didn't have a nose job? I wouldn't have remembered.
I didn't. Okay. I would tell you. I wouldn't be ashamed of that whatsoever.
Okay. Shall I ask the first question?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We'll dive right in.
All right. This is probably a story I should know, at least for Hillary, because I'm sure I was there, but I don't remember. If each of you could take a turn, maybe recounting your journey as a U2 fan, although it'd be interesting also to hear your journey as Journey fans, but that's for another day. But if you could recount your journey as a U2 fan, like when did you first hear them, and what was that like? Like when did that spark happen that this is everybody has a band that they're a fan of? When did this happen that this was your band?
Well, let me just say before we get into that, it was a musical journey.
It was a musical journey.
A musical journey.
It still is a musical journey.
It's still a musical journey.
And we get to reuse that on Rattle and Hum.
I wish they hadn't buried him in the backyard.
I have no idea what's happening right now.
No, it's okay. We'll get to this in the next episode. We'll revisit all of this. So just listen.
If I do funny hand gestures, will you understand what that's from?
Yeah. It's like we have
podcasts longer than me, but I'm pretty sure hand gestures don't work in podcasts either.
I know, but the people listening will get that.
Yeah, okay. At least that's what you said it was going to be about.
Okay, Hillary, you answer first.
Okay, I kind of thought about this. I had to dig a little deep for this because my journey wasn't entirely a smooth one. I think that I must have heard Sunny Bloody Sunday and Pride, and I must have heard that before Live Aid. But my first, like when U2 first came on my radar was at Live Aid, which, we talked about before, but it was a day that definitely changed my life, and not necessarily because of U2. It was just the day, and the performances. So, I mean, that was the first time I remember there was a U2. But then I was going to school one day, and there were a bunch of kids in the back of my bus singing Bad, and I didn't know what it was, but it was just the lyrics kind of, and they were singing, and it wasn't like they were playing it or anything.
Oh, funny.
I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And seriously, within a few days of that is when the Joshua Tree dropped. And everybody was, my age at least, was very aware of that. But in terms of my journey, I mean, I was just a musically obsessed kid. I mean, would you say that, Jeremy?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, anything that came on the radio, I could tell you what it was, and I could tell you
Yeah.
the song, who sang it, and the lyrics, and probably what it was about, or some origin of something. I mean, it was absolutely my obsession. I really am not sure that the fact that I became, a diehard U2 fan, I think that it wasn't necessarily, it was almost like they chose me. More than I chose them just because of the time, because of when they came out, like, what the audience they were looking for. I guess I was that at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that, like, I discovered, like, that I had any longevity. I mean, I had posters and everything, but I don't think I discovered that I had longevity to be a lifelong fan until Octung Baby came out. I do remember, though, Jeremy, we went to Charlottesville not long after, just family weekend, not long after Joshua Tree came out, and you and Will and Jeremy went into the used bookstore behind Minter's in Charlottesville and got me this little picture book of Boy, which I still have it.
Wow,
Oh,
I
it's so
also have no
cute.
recollection of that.
I wouldn't think you would remember that, but it was like you got it and then you gave it to me for my birthday or something, but it wasn't near my birthday, but you guys gave it to me then anyway. I don't know.
Oh,
I
that's so
have a
cute.
really good memory of that for some reason. I know the book. I can see the bookstore and everything.
Weirdly enough, I can remember that bookstore. I can picture it really clearly, but I don't remember the book. I don't remember a lot from when I was a little kid for some reason. I want to add one more thing to that, and then I'm interested in what Jenny's going to say too. But considering the number of people that watched Live Aid on TV, every one of those people had some kind of experience from that. I mean, no one could have watched that and not have been changed in some way. And that's just one of those pop culture moments that I think affects all of us today in ways that are hard to describe.
Yeah, and I mean, I think about it, and I mean, I definitely remember U2 from that day, but I mean, what I took home that day wasn't U2. It was Sting with Dire Straits. It was Queen, obviously. I was aware that there was a U2, and I remember that being a big performance, but that's not my huge memory of that day. Also, I watched it, Jeremy, in the den in the brown beanbag chair.
Yeah, that's how long ago that was. That beanbag chair, R.I.P., right? It's long
Well, it was way gone, but it also, didn't it melt?
I just remember there being beans everywhere.
Yeah, we got it too close to the heater or something, and it
it was dangerously close to that radiator.
It was.
Dangerous.
It was a brown
beanbag
leather
chair.
beanbag, a brown vinyl beanbag chair.
Yeah.
That
Okay. Thank
Jenny.
you, Hillary. That I vaguely remember some of those things. Jenny, what was your journey?
Funny enough, like you asked when we would first hear them, but I have a snapshot that's in my mind that I just never ever forgot. Was in middle school, so I don't know if it was 7th or 8th grade. It would have been the late 80s. And I remember standing behind my friend Sarah, and she was getting stuff out of her locker, and in her hand was a Joshua Tree cassette. For some reason, I saw it, and I became instantly aware that I did not know what was going on in the current music world, because my father had taught me that the only band that mattered was Huey Lewis and the News. With a side of Jay Giles Band and some Beach Boys. And it turns out he had this huge, eclectic, amazing taste in music, but Huey Lewis is his Bono. Which I just love so much.
I think that's worthy.
I think it's okay. But this is stuck with me forever. I can see it happen. I know our middle school was in this weird old house that used to be a mansion that they turned into a middle school.
Oh my gosh.
And so lockers.
Are you one of the X-Men?
Yeah. And it's exactly it. One day I'll show you my uniform. But our lockers were on weird landings and stuff. I can picture exactly where we were, what was happening in that moment. And I was saving this story for our Octung Baby episode, but I'll tell it now too. We're in high school. So I don't know if I was a freshman or a sophomore, so I don't know if it was like 91 or 92. But me and a group of friends, we used to meet at this radiator every morning, and we would sit there and we'd chat before we went to class. And my friends, Ashley and Allie, came to me and they're like, Jenny, you got to get this new album and go straight to number 3. Just go straight to number 3. That's all it is. And then that's it. That's going to be it for you. And I'm like, okay. So like the next day or two, I went to the record store and I bought Octane Baby and I put it in my stereo and I sat down on my desk to do homework. And Bono talks about this. He has this quote that he goes on about, but this is literally my experience. I didn't hear him say this until after my experience. Zoo Station came on and I went and I reset my stereo. I checked my speaker connection. Like everything. I thought something was broken. I checked the CD to make sure there weren't any scratches. But he talks about that. He's like, when people heard Zero Station, they checked to make sure their speakers were okay. And I'm like, you got that from me.
That's
no joke. It was crazy. The song they were talking about, of course, was One.
Yeah.
But I needed to hear One.
That's
which was
a great
number
song.
3. But something happened, and a lot like Hillary, we listened to the radio a lot, and so I knew a lot of stuff. I was familiar with a lot of stuff, but my parents had a ticket subscription to our local amphitheater, and the shows my mom didn't want to go to, my dad would take me. Or if my mom was unavailable, my dad would take me. So we saw Heart a few times, and Don Henley, and he would take me to see Sting, and I'd go see Steve Miller. And I don't even remember who else, but I would love those concerts so much that I would then go buy all their CDs, like everything I could get. And I would kind of hits and stuff that I liked, but as a catalog, nothing stuck. I would own, and I wouldn't buy all of them, but I'd buy like 2, 3. So I was interested in learning more. Like when I found a band that I liked, I wanted to hear more. So I guess that happened with you too.
Yeah.
But I don't remember much after hearing Zoo Station, man. I don't remember much after that moment.
I recently rediscovered Achtung Baby, and that album is amazing all the way through. And I remember that might have been one of my first YouTube memories, is when that album came out and Hillary was listening to it a lot. And for whatever reason, I hated it.
Was it because she listened to it a lot?
Yeah, probably.
My sister wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
Because it was all I have on in the car.
I was incorrect in my assessment of that particular album.
It's an amazing album. I look forward to that episode very, very, very much.
I know, that's why I really want to just skip over Rattle and Hum, but
yeah,
we can't. We owe our listeners the complete catalog.
So the follow-up question I have for this is, when you look at the late 70s and the early 80s, and you look specifically at the British Islands, and there's so many amazing bands, and there's so much culture-changing music coming out of that place in that time. Why is it that you think U2 is the band for you for that out of everybody else? Or, maybe in this additional question, if there's like a second place for a band coming from that part of the world in that time period.
I can answer that. Let me just say, before U2, I was already committed to the region. I was already in that region, in that area of the world before U2 came into my life, and that was because of the Police, but also Culture Club and Wham and Duran Duran, and I mean, these were the Eurythmics and David Bowie. Those were staples in my life before U2 came to me. I mean, especially the Police. That was my...
Yeah, Sting was my first. He was the first artist I traveled to see. The first artist who I kept buying more CDs because I couldn't get enough.
Right.
And then that translated to the Police.
This is kind of a interesting, my little journey with the Police. I don't have an older sibling, and I mean, my parents just listen to folk music. So, and I have older cousins, but I mean, they're great people, but they were into Foreigner and Def Leppard and I mean nothing bad, Rush and stuff, but it just wasn't
your jam.
it wasn't my jam. And my oldest cousin, Shelly, actually got into the police. She was into the police. And that's where I got the police from, which is really interesting because Jeremy, would you think that's where my music origin came from?
I didn't know that you got into the police from Shelley, no, but I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, it was definitely Shelley, and I was little. I mean, I was very young when I discovered them. I don't know. Back to why this band, and again, I said it before, but I really honestly felt like they picked me. It wasn't
I literally
really...
have that written down. I don't know if you can see it. I know they can't.
Yeah.
I said I didn't choose them. They chose me.
They chose me, but
and never let go.
But I mean, in terms of their journey, though, the Joshua Tree, I mean, they wanted a departure from college radio. I mean, that's what they were. They were, this band that fought being punk and somehow got stuck in the college radio rut. I mean, though I listen to it now and I don't think of it doesn't sound like a pop album today, but it was a pop album and it was intended to be a pop album when Joshua Tree came out. And so you want to get mainstream, you want that departure from college radio. Where do you turn? And that's to teenagers. And right. I literally was at the right place at the right time. And I mean, all of my friends at the time, they were all anyone listened to was the Joshua Tree. I don't think I knew that it was going to stick until Achtung Baby came out, but that also was because of the internet, Yeah. And when that came around and I realized that, I guess, got woke. Can I say that?
I guess so.
Am I too old to say it? I got woke.
Not if it's suited.
Right. I wanted moody, deep music and lyrics, and the Joshua Tree just fit in. But again, I don't think that I actually allowed that to kind of take off until Achtung Baby, when I knew that I wasn't the only crazy U2 fan out there.
Because it was during Achtung Baby that we found a community online.
Yes.
To talk to.
Man.
Yeah.
The internet,
Well,
that was before the internet was the internet.
We just had Prodigy.
There was no wwws.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So Achtung Baby was coming out around the time that people were able to get internet connections in their house.
Yeah, I mean, it was dial-up, but I didn't have like a web browser. We had Prodigy, and they had bulletin boards.
Yeah,
and you could go
AOL, yeah.
To the bulletin boards, or AOL had their chat groups and stuff. That's how I met Jenny.
Yep.
Jeez.
In 1992.
On the internet.
We met we don't want to give away too much of our origin story, but we met on the YouTube message boards talking about Sting and Passover service.
Yes. The YouTube BBs.
The BBs.
The BB.
So
bulletin board for you young people.
Bulletin board.
I only vaguely remember that, and I'm not that young.
Yeah, you had to subscribe to a service, and you only got what was contained in that service. You couldn't search the web.
Yeah.
And dial-up, which,
there
good
was
Lord.
No Google.
Dial-up was just, how did we even live like that?
I don't know, but I would try and check my mail before I went to school, and you couldn't hide it, because it was like... Did
it really have to make that noise?
Jenny's
I don't think it had
again.
What about you, Jenny? Were there any other bands coming out of that part of the world in those times that spoke to you or speak to you now?
I certainly, because of U2, I started to learn about other bands. I remember really diving into like Hot House Flowers, who I really loved for a long time, and I should look them back up. I went to see them in concert, and they were really great. They're another Irish band, but I was really like headstrong with that U2, man, and like everything I had was from my dad. So, and I remember him having the Synchronicity CD and just the shows he took me to and stuff. So I was not already over in the British and Irish Isles. of course, Sting and the Police, but I wasn't aware of geography.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason with me, that was always, I mean, I can't really think of that many American bands that I really dug back then. Like I really was regional.
Yeah, and I remember going to a
Can
birthday
you?
party, and the favor was we each got a cassette tape, and we got to pick the one we wanted, and I didn't know any of them, and so the one I picked up was Wham,
Huh.
and I had no idea. Like this was just not. I had no one to give me that influence.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that said, I mean, most of this I discovered, I didn't get Wham from anybody else in our family. That was just me. I discovered, and it was just I listened to the radio all the time. So I don't know if I maybe mentioned it when we did our Joshua Tree up, but the way I got my Joshua Tree cassette was that our father had a Columbia House subscription. And so every so often he'd let me get a cassette. And I actually think that Joshua Tree came from him not returning the card.
Oh, and it just came.
It
It
just
showed up.
automatically showed up. That was, I mean, I definitely, not my taste, but my passion for music, I definitely got from our dad. I mean,
Yeah.
I dove deep into the Seattle scene in
I mean,
the mid to late. So all my Columbia House and whatever stuff was all Seattle bands.
yeah.
That
Well,
most sides
by
didn't
then
listen to.
by then I was on my own with getting I had my own Columbia House. In
Well,
the
yeah,
80s,
yeah.
I could get my dad to get me stuff. I mean, he was all into Columbia. I mean,
What a cool deal that was.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you,
I'd share with you guys what I did with Columbia House when I was in college, but I'm worried about being prosecuted for mail fraud, so I'm not gonna share the details. But most of my digital music library today is still from CDs that I got through Columbia House.
Nice.
oh, really?
Late 90s, very early 2000s.
Somewhere there is a box of empty cassette cases in this house. Not cassette, CD cases. There's no CDs in them. There's like, I have no idea what the heck. And they're not mine because there's like, what was that band, That Dog or something you liked?
That's mine. They're all empty. No, I
they're
think
all
most
empty.
of them have CDs in it. That Dog was great.
Well, for some reason.
What a great band name. I used to that in this
Uh,
house all the time. That dog, your dog, my dog. It's mostly your dog. That dog.
Okay, so the next question. There aren't a lot of bands that have been around. U2's been a functioning band for what, 40 years now?
40 plus years, yeah.
40 plus years. There are very few bands that have been around for that long a time that are A, still together, and B, still successfully tour. And when U2 tours, and they have very successful tours, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're generally playing a lot of new content. Like they'll release a new album and tour on that album and make a mountain of money.
Yeah, the Joshua Tree tour was the big exception.
Yeah.
The only exception.
The only exception.
How is that possible? How is
360
U2 able to do that is the question that I have. What about them has made them not just persist, but thrived in a way? You know, the Rolling Stones still go on tour, but they're not playing an awful lot of new stuff.
I would say, do they have new music?
They had an album out in 2016. I looked it up for this very question.
Okay, because I made a note to look and then I didn't.
So I think that I can give you my answer and I can give you what I think would be Bono's answer to that in his words. So I can channel. I think Bono's answer would be that they stay semi-relevant because they just keep reinventing themselves. They keep dreaming it up again. Though I believe that, I don't entirely think that, I don't think they are relevant. I think they have to be one of the best live bands ever.
You think it's the show that does it? It's not even the content. It's the show.
No, it's the show. And I think that, you know, people go because they want to hear Streets. They want to hear Pride and Beautiful Day or whatever. And I think that's what keeps them. It's the concerts. You know, I mean, the history of rock and roll was built on concerts were there to promote album sales. U2 kind of broke that mold.
Yeah.
Not really. I think the Grateful Dead broke that mold. But I mean, U2 have continued that there aren't album sales anymore. I mean, they got to make their money
Right.
off touring and merchandise and stuff. I love their new music. I mean, their last album was one of my top 3 U2 albums ever. But I don't think their new music keeps them relevant. I think it's touring that keeps them alive. So that's my opinion. But I have a friend that he went to the last tour in DC. He said it was one of the best shows he'd ever seen, and he did not know one song off the new album.
And the
So
technology is just absolutely amazing. I was scrolling through Facebook today, and I read a headline that I saved to read, and I haven't yet. But the headline was that concerts in small clubs is what keeps the music industry going. And YouTube will go on and on. Bono will go on and on about how the bigger they get, the harder they work through technology to keep the arena small, to make everyone feel like they're in a small club. And they must make it work because people keep coming back.
Yeah. And
even people not in the front row, they keep coming back.
So that was I'm like, it always feels like that to me, but
but it is. But we're right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one in front of me.
And there's no one else. I mean, I don't get to see a lot of big concerts nowadays, not in necessarily arenas and stadiums. I think the technology is unmatched.
Yeah.
The props and the stuff they use, like the screen for the Joshua Tree tour, which apparently each leg got higher and higher in resolution, and the bear cage on the E&I and I&E tour, like no one else is doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I also think that a lot of people are trying to go backwards to that bare bones thing where you don't have to.
Well, and YouTube tries to get to the bare bones by using everything.
Right.
The bare bones feeling
by using
a lot of
everything. Technology. Yeah.
But if YouTube decided for whatever reason to do a tour of 300 capacity venues, they'd also make a killing at that, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Without the tech.
Hey there, friends. Jenny here from the Garden Tarts, and I want to tell you about Anchor, which is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it is 100% free, and there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will even distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard across multiple platforms, including Spotify and Apple. You can make money with your podcast, and it's everything you need to create a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Oh, hell yeah.
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 I mean, people will go, I go see them play Trash Dump.
I might prefer to.
Right? I mean, I think that would be awesome for them. Jeremy, if they did a concert at Mount Trashmore.
Yeah, I'd go. That'd be fun.
Wouldn't that be the best thing ever?
Here's a question that I just thought of, though. Do you get a sense from what you know about these guys specifically that any of them are particularly tech savvy? Because you're right, what they reinvent is the technology. That they continue to use more and more advanced technology to put on a bigger show.
So I think that, and I think I probably speak for everyone when I say this, that Edge is tech savvy.
Yeah,
Bono has the imagination. Like he can dream that big, and Edge can harness it.
And I think it's Willie Williams.
Well,
so Bono says there's this story he tells, or someone tells, that he's at a dining room table and he has spoons.
and
he's like creating something, and he's like, Willie, we need to make this, and it turned into the claw
from
on
360.
So Bono's the one, he just draws shit.
He has the imagination.
And their team does it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It didn't occur to me that the key to all of that is the technology. It's very high-tech performance they're doing.
And they're constantly ahead of the grade. And I mean, there's articles and articles about this, but they're constantly, and then people catch up, and then they're
Yeah, they have to.
Right.
And then they get ahead again.
I went with Will and Jeremy, our other brother Will, to see you two at FedEx in Maryland. And when we came down the stairs, Will was like, "Oh my God." And I'm thinking, he sees the rail spot that I see. This is what's going through my
Was
head.
this
I'm like,
for
there's a
Joshua
rail
Tree?
spot right there. Like, when he was, oh my God, what he was freaking out over was the stage and the screen and everything. And to me, I'm just like,
This was
it's
Joshua
just,
Tree, right?
yeah. Well, I had already seen
Well, yeah, but I just wanted to
2 shows or something, right?
get
So, I
that
mean, to
perspective
me,
for our listeners.
absolutely. It was Joshua Tree with the giant Joshua Tree screen. But this is what Will sees. And I see that we are not early by any means. And there's a rail spot exactly where I would like for it to be. So we had 2 totally different, oh my God, moments.
Every time
OMG
I saw
moments.
that stage, I just gasped. And then I looked for the rails and died.
Right.
On a similar note, can each of you share your first U2 live experience story?
I went to see you two on March 7th, 1992 at the Hampton Coliseum for the Zoo TV tour. And it was everything I had dreamed of it being. I mean, I was way up in the rafters, but it was at the Hampton Coliseum, which is pretty small anyway.
And
So
it's indoor, right?
indoor. It was the 3rd show of the tour. I wouldn't have known this at the time, but I'm sure it was crap.
Probably.
I just had nothing to compare it to. And again, they could have been, doing nothing, and I would have been freaking out just because I was in the room.
Right.
Oh, that couldn't be the worst show you've ever been to at the Hampton Coliseum, because you went to my high school graduation there, and that was
No, it's definitely not the worst show I've seen though I've seen some good shows there. It's definitely not the worst show. No, it was definitely the best show I've seen at the Hampton Coliseum.
My first show was the opening night of Pop Mart in Las Vegas, which was April 1997. And I honestly don't have a lot of memories from it. It was just like this big blur. I have these little snapshots. I have a very good friend who lives out in LA, and I had met her online, and she was just feeding me the juice, man. And she's like, come to the show, fly into LA, we'll go together. And I was in college, and I remember asking my parents if they would maybe help fund this a little bit. And my dad made me a deal. And he said, I will help you with your plane ticket if you do one thing. And I was like, what's that? He's like, you have to read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Which ended up being just like the highlight of my life. Like what an amazing book. So he really just wanted to get that in me. So thanks, Dad. But I went, and I remember it turns out that Hillary and we were not far from each other. We were maybe 20 rows apart. I bet we did not know each other was there. I mean, this was pre-cell phones.
No, I knew you were there.
We knew we were there.
I remember walking around just yelling like, Jenny!
But there was no way to get in touch there.
No.
But I remember, we had no idea what to expect. And I remember it was obvious the band was coming out, and we were like 2 seats from the aisle. The band came down. And I was like, what the fuck? I remember them messing up some stuff and things that didn't come back. But I don't have a lot of memories from the show otherwise. It was just like such a surreal moment.
My memory, I'm like that with the show at the Hampton Coliseum. That Las Vegas show, I have saved each and every little memory of everything that happened at that show. Like, I could tell you every bit of, I mean, that show it was so awful.
I can't tell you about the first time I heard Streets live because I apparently died.
Yeah, I think
but I
died.
can tell you about the first time I heard Do You Feel Love live because it sucked.
Staring at the sun. Jeez, man.
I don't remember. I just remember Do You Feel Love. I was like, did they practice this?
Right. I know they did because we spent 2 days listening to the rehearsals out in a parking lot in the desert, which was the coolest thing ever. But then whenever they did
can't remember.
rehearsing, they did not do that live. They started staring at the sun, and then they had to stop. It fell apart and then it restarted again.
Maybe I
Oh
remember
my
that too.
gosh. That's
Remember-
embarrassing for
Because I
them.
kind of had that memory of Do You Feel Loved, so maybe I mixed those twos up, but those two.
Nothing was great at that show.
No.
It was just being there that was
I will tell you that I got into the band and I didn't realize they were touring until Zoo TV had left America and it turned into Zooropa in Europe. And I said to my dad, like, oh my gosh, I missed this. And he's like, well, let's go. And I was like, ha ha ha. But now, as I'm much older and wiser and know my dad that much better, he was not kidding. He would have taken me to Europe to see you two. And where would I be?
right.
Still there, maybe.
I'd still be right here, but who would I
Have
know?
either of you
I don't
ever
know.
seen a show at that level of just showmanship and we were saying the technology and the staging? Have you ever seen anything close to that before?
That's a hard no.
Yeah, I tried real hard to think if I could answer that question, and I've definitely seen stuff where, like, the fan level's the same, the band's engagement is like the same, but I mean, I'm thinking of like maybe Bruce or Dave Matthews Band.
Right. I mean, Bruce puts on
Of what I've seen, but not it's not comparable.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
I-
I don't think there really is
and
anybody.
Showmanship.
Yeah.
Because Bruce and Dave, they remained themselves.
Right. Bruce is kind of hit or miss though, because you never, it's like the set list might work for some people, but it doesn't. There's no way that's going to work for everybody.
Right.
And I've seen Bruce, and it's been a great show, and I've seen him, and it's been not a great show because I didn't know anything that he was. And
Right.
I'm a pretty big, solid
Yeah.
Springsteen fan, and for me to go to a show, like a 3-hour show, and I knew 3 songs.
That's insane.
That's insane. So, I mean, obviously you two couldn't do that because I
No.
know, I mean, for the most part, I know all of their songs. Some B-sides and stuff, I don't know, but
Like Madonna or like Britney Spears put on a show that big though. Like,
Jenny's
I
seen
mean, I
Madonna.
haven't seen them either, but I'd imagine that there's a similar like level of a elevated show experience that you get from going to see someone like that too.
You know how
should
I
use
wonder?
backup dancers next time. That you should tell them they need backup dancers.
Yeah,
no,
right.
no.
Mm-mm-mm. I wonder, we had friends that went to see Beyonce the last time they came to the stadium here in Cleveland, and I saw pictures, and there was definitely platforms that moved and came in and out of the audience and stuff. And I'd be interested if that was something of this caliber
Yeah.
or not, but not anything that I have personally seen.
No,
I mean, I just saw Madonna, but I saw her in a 2,000 person theater.
Right.
She connected with the fans by literally coming into the seats and sitting with the fans. That was not a technology show.
Hey Madonna, do you want some of my popcorn?
Yes, please. Apparently she likes warm beer. So
Ew.
maybe she doesn't like warm beer, but apparently she drinks beer.
Oh, because she's English.
She lives in Portugal now. So who knows?
I think they like beer in Detroit too, though.
Yeah, they do like beer in Detroit.
So, excuse me. Changing the subject a little bit.
Your question though, to me, it's a hard no. I've never seen anybody.
Yeah. Definitely, I haven't either.
I've seen bands with fireworks.
Oh no, I've seen good
Oh,
shows.
Fireworks, I know.
No, I saw the Killers in a small theater that was shockingly good. I mean, they put on a good show, but it's not this. By no means is the same caliber. I saw Elton John a few years ago, and on like an emotional level, man, that show was I'll never forget. I mean, I was with a group of 6 people, men and women, and at one point we all just hugged and cried. It was
Right.
like
But
crazy.
the showmanship of a U2 show is
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Elton John has showmanship. Bruce has showmanship. It's just they don't have it all going on at the same time
right.
with my emotional level. That's the other thing. There's a difference between a show and a concert, which I think we
Right.
touched on this before, but I mean, when I saw Elton John, it was a concert.
Right.
Springsteen,
The concert.
it's mostly a concert, but U2 put on a show, and that's a totally different.
Yeah.
That's
It's
a totally
choreographed
different
and
game.
produced and
Yeah,
I've
precise.
seen Guar before. They put on a show.
I'm
Guar
sure they
puts
do.
on
Sure
a
they
hell of
do.
a show. Different
Yeah.
type of show, though.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So changing the subject a little bit, moving away from live performance. At least my earliest memories of U2 have the implication that they were a political band, that they were making music that was making a political or a social justice statement. And maybe this is a little bit harder of a question to answer, but do you think that they earned that reputation then, or that they've continued to earn that now? Do you think they live up to that expectation of being a political band?
They actually got that label before they really were. And we talked about this in our war episode, that people were calling it a political album and they were a political band, when really their songs weren't political. They were emotionally reacting to the political climate of the world, the violence of the politics. But they're passionate and interested in what is happening in the world, and they write and play about what interests them. And if that happens to be politics in the time, then that's what they're going to play and sing about.
I think that rewording the question a little is, do you mean has Bono saved the world yet? And no, but not for not trying.
Yeah.
Right.
He's put a good effort in there. It's just, and that works for me. Like, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I learned about Amnesty International. I learned about, the troubles in Northern Ireland. And I mean, maybe I would have organically learned about that stuff anyway, but I definitely knew I don't actually remember learning about Northern Ireland in world history class.
No,
I mean, we
didn't.
No, so I mean, I think that at some point I would have organically learned about that just because I'm interested in history and stuff. But I mean, I learned about this stuff from U2. I learned about so many things that I don't think that I would have, and not just way back when, but I mean, from listening to songs of experience, I mean, I feel like I understood the refugee crisis so much better by learning from U2 than I think I would have from just the news and reading the newspaper.
Well, it's so interesting that people say they're like, I wish they would just sing and stay out of politics.
Right.
But I still I go back to that war thing, that like they're about human right.
Right.
And treating each other fairly and appropriately, and whether Amnesty International is considered political or not doesn't matter. They are for human rights. Whether or not the AIDS crisis in Africa, like the way to help fix that is through the political channels with funding and stuff, but politics is a way to help fix the human rights problem.
Right.
So it is interesting that they are often, especially in their shows, commenting on the political climate.
Right.
But the reason they're commenting on it is not because of the Iran nuclear deal or something. It's because people are dying or being treated unfairly. So just those bleeding hearts.
It is.
It's what it is, I think. More than politics, it's the bleeding heart.
I questioned this to our group of U2 friends over the years, but I mean, I know what my answer is, but like we had some political discussion, and it was a political discussion a few years ago, and I have no idea what it was about. I'm sure it was about Trump or something. And we all expressed this same sentiment, and I started thinking, what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. I mean, I know my answer to that is I was raised liberal, and again, U2 just kind of fell into my existing family and personal beliefs. I don't think that's the case for everybody. So like the fact that we all are politically aligned is just I always find that interesting. Like,
It's
Yeah.
pretty rare to find a U2 fan that is not politically aligned with us or the band.
well,
They do exist.
Yes, there are, I think, a few of them. But I have a friend who, he's also liberal, but he went to one of the shows at Madison Square Garden for I&E, and he kind of complained about it after the show. Like, we go there and all we hear about is AIDS and El Salvador and
It was like
Northern
3
Ireland.
songs.
And it's like, what did you come here thinking you were gonna, what did you expect?
Right.
Yeah.
Have you never heard this music before? Are you new? I mean, he's not new.
No.
Um,
And also those songs, it's not the whole show. It's like actually a
no.
pretty small percentage of the show.
Right. Well, no, there was something, and
There was
not
a middle
not
section that was pretty intense.
and not nearly intense. Like, I mean, I&E was tame compared to E&I because the political climate had changed.
Yeah, Fisto arrived.
Yeah. Anyway, but I still think that's like, to me, it's like, just like, I don't know, showing up at a Trump rally and playing One or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally different.
I've recently gotten into Reddit for the first time, which I've learned was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I'm a really big Star Trek fan, as Hillary knows. And there are people on the Star Trek Reddit that are just outright being like racist. And I'm like, have you seen the show? Like, do you know what this is? Like, that's the opposite of everything that this is supposed to be. I mean, if you want to be racist, I guess you have technically a right to be racist, but you don't have a right then to be a Star Trek fan, right? It's always
like
surprising when you
ever.
You think your perception of a thing is the perception everyone's going to have, and then you meet someone that's just way off mark.
Right.
So that's interesting. So I'm going to amend. I would say that social justice or human dignity is not politics. Politics is a tool that we can use to try to improve that. But having a conversation about human dignity is not a political conversation.
No.
Right.
So maybe U2's not a political band, but they're a human dignity band.
I think it's fair to say. Yeah.
Having said all of that, and with Huey Lewis aside, Jenny, the music Hillary and I grew up with, Hillary had said before, was a lot of folk music about minor strikes and train wrecks and stuff. And I feel like that also is music that has a focus on human dignity at its core as well. Maybe this is a dark question to ask, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. Do you think music that focuses on that can fix society's problems? Like Hillary had said, Bono hasn't saved the world yet. Do you think that he could?
No, right now I but I mean,
he is for some people. He's saving the world for millions of people.
Millions of people. I think that he could, in terms of getting his message across. The more we went to Ireland. I went with Jenny and our other garden tart, Amanda, and like right before we went, there was a thing about you could buy a well in Africa for $1,000, and I get on the plane heading to Ireland to go and drink, basically.
Yeah.
To roam the streets and drink. And I could have built several wells off of that trip. And it really, like, Jenny went to a wedding, and Amanda and I sat in a bar for like 3 days. And that came up like many times in that conversation. Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, this is great and everything, but we could have used this money to buy a well that would have given 1,000 people like fresh water in Africa or whatever. I mean, that said, for all you know, I also did that. I didn't, but I mean, that's not really anyone else's business. What, my charity, as I say, that the same for the band. when people criticize, well, Bono's trying to save the world, but he also spends, 2 months a year in St. Bart's or whatever. Well, you don't know. He could be spending all of his money to save the world and, is living in a hut in St. Bart's or something. I don't think that's really accurate.
No, but I think he has enough money to do both.
He can do both, and it's none of our business what he does with his money. But that said, my thought process on going to Ireland and not building a well was, that is how you save the world. Like one person at a time, to have that awareness.
Think about that.
Needs to be done.
The amnesty campaigns. Because we talked about this before, that because of you two, I learned about Amnesty International and started writing letters. And the more communication you get from Amnesty, the more you learn that the more you write, the more people are freed. And, there's numbers that I don't know off the top of my head after the Conspiracy of Hope tour promoting. It was a awareness campaign for Amnesty. Their numbers increased significantly, letter writing increased significantly, and prisoners of conscience were freed. So, saving the world isn't, if you don't look at it as all of humanity, but as one life at a time.
Yeah.
It's dozens of lives at a time or thousands of lives at a time. I think that's a job well done for a tour or for music or for some liner notes with an address in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to be hopeful these days when it comes to things like human dignity and social justice and politics. But that's a really good point. I went through a phase, and I think a lot of people did a few years ago, where the idea, I'm not a musician, but I produce a lot of creative input that sometimes gets in front of people as comedy. And I hope that comedy that I write also has human dignity at its core. And just the idea that we could change anything, or that satire was a thing that could have an impact. And it's sometimes hard to remember that it can. But if you make a song that moves someone in some totally irrelevant and kind of pop culture way, and it makes them tap their foot up and down while they're listening to it, but then they go to your website or they go to your show or they watch an interview of you and you say, this is a real problem in the world, and this is a thing that all of us could do to try to make it better, you can have a really big impact on people's lives.
Of course. And
that's a hopeful thing. I think that's an important thing to do.
Bono likes to say that U2 from the beginning, this is how they got out of this is how they convinced themselves that it was worth being in a rock and roll band while also being committed Christians, was that they could use the platform for good.
Yeah.
And he has always said that his celebrity is currency.
Yeah.
And that he can use it. It's, if you can use that soapbox, pays to advertise. But if you can use that currency as money to spread the word about something or to get in front of a politician or a decision maker, it's a big deal.
It is.
It is. And our dad said to me one time years ago, though they say there's no short list, apparently Bono was on the short list for the Nobel Peace Prize. Our dad said, he really earns that. That's not his job.
No.
Obama got it and absolutely worthy, should have gotten it, but that's his job to do. And Bono's job is not to do that. And for him to work towards, peace he's volunteering to do that. It's totally different than Obama getting or Jimmy Carter or
right. Someone who's already in that field.
Yeah.
Working with the world.
That makes me feel good. That makes me feel a little bit more hopeful. I think it is possible for people to still have an impact on the world in a positive way.
Right. The other thing, though, is, you always want to have hope, but I don't always have hope, but I still try to move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's just my end thoughts on that one.
Hey there, listeners. If you're a U2 fan, you are more than likely aware of the work that Bono has done and continues to do in Africa. It's amazing work, and the exciting thing is you can get involved too. There are 2 simple ways. 1. Go to one.org and sign up to fight against extreme poverty. 2. Visit red.org to shop. What? Shopping helps? It sure does. By purchasing Red branded products, you are contributing to the Global Fund, which supports HIV/AIDS grants in many African countries. As your man says, where you live should not decide whether you live or whether you die. So head on over to one.org and red.org to join the Garden Tarts in doing our part to end AIDS.
So the last question I have, and this is weirdly bringing us full circle because we started by talking about the Jetsons, is what would you like to see from the future of U2? Do you think of them still going on tour like the Rolling Stones are, Mick Jagger's in his mid-70s? What would you hope to see that from these guys in the future?
Well, I have a prepared response for this one. I actually prepared. I remember reading an interview with Mick Jagger from when he was in his 20s or 30s or something. And they said, where do you see the future of the Rolling Stones? And he said, I don't know, but I'll tell you, I won't be doing this when I'm 50. And again, he's...
Surprise!
76. So Springsteen is in his 70s, Sting's in his 70s, Bono's almost 60, and none of them seem to be close to slowing down anytime. U2, I mean, I don't know how much of this is fact and rumor, but I'm pretty sure it's fact, but that they are currently in contract negotiations for another 10-year contract, which will put them at 70, or at least put Adam and Bono 70, at 70. But, I mean, they're going strong. I mean, like, this past tour blew my mind. Just, like, Bono, the control of Bono's voice that he has now. At least on new songs, he's never had control of his voice like he does now. I'm saying on new songs. But, I mean, they don't seem like they're slowing down to me. I mean, I'd like to see them keep going as long as they can. I'm not ready to retire, so...
There's an energy with the band on stage that they've never had before.
Never had.
Never had. And I remember seeing them, I guess it was on the E&I E stage. And I remember saying to myself, or I don't know who I said it aloud to, that something was happening there. Like the new album is happening on that stage. Whatever is happening. And then Bono said it since then, but I would like for it to go on the record.
Right.
That I had that as my own thought before.
Oh, yeah.
So I wasn't imagining things, obviously. The connection that they have over the past two tours, it's like it's magic. It's something. It's different. It's something new. Yeah.
And like,
so you're saying instead of them continuing to go strong, that they're getting better.
Yeah.
As musicians and as a band as a whole, yes.
Yes. And the odd thing is that I feel like Bono said that a million years ago. You know, people are like, oh, well, you know, the Joshua Tree or whatever. And he's just like, nah, you know, we're moving forward. Like, we're just going to get better. And I don't think that's always been the case, because they did have a few duds.
You can't be perfect all the time.
No, but I mean, there was a good 10, 15 years where even though the shows were great, I still felt that they weren't all in it. They faltered a little bit. I mean, holy crap, this past tour was the best tour I've ever seen.
It was unbelievable. I continue next 10 years. I expect a lot of new music. I expect better and more exciting shows. I expect them to continue to expand in other venues, like the XM radio. I feel like it's just the beginning of ways they're going to put themselves out there. You know, I expect everything.
Yeah. I think that, you know, maybe think about just staying healthy and
it's a really good.
Yeah, keeping off the booze and maybe be entirely cigarette free and don't break anything or require robot parts, or
maybe stay out of the hospital. That would be
any major health incidents. And the other three should do that too.
Yes.
They should keep up.
Keith Richards is still doing all of that stuff apparently, and he's fine. So
well, the other three should just keep on doing what they've been doing. The other three should just
our
keep
man
it up.
Is very fragile.
So can we ask you some questions, Jeremy?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I wasn't prepared for that. I just saw at the bottom, but I'll do my best.
It was in the workbook.
I didn't look at the bottom of the workbook until just now.
Okay, so Jenny, you had the first question.
So I was thinking about how I would be driving, since I'm the older sister, I would be driving my younger sister to and from school all the time. And I just had the Octa Baby cassette in the car, and it would just, flip itself and just keep going. And she would holler at me, like, I can't stand being in this car anymore. So I'm curious about, this is kind of two questions together, like your first exposure to U2, and what was that like, or how was that influenced by having a U2 fan sister?
My earliest U2 memories are probably from Hillary driving me around in the old, what was that car, that old brown car?
The Chevy Citation.
Thank you, yes. The earliest song I can remember,
which didn't have a cassette player. I had like a little cassette radio, like boombox thing in the car, and that's how I played music in that car.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I had no cassette player.
And you wouldn't have been driving me to school, because we never went to the same school.
No, but I drove you were safety patrol.
That's right, I was in the safety patrol.
And at some point with Jeremy, our parents were just like, yeah, we're done. He's yours.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. I got a kid. I remember signing your report card one time. I chaperoned a trip to the War Memorial Museum or something like that. Like I
remember that.
Yeah, well, my parents were just like, we're done. But
you were done with me pretty quickly.
I raised Jeremy.
The earliest song I remember hearing, though, was definitely Sunday Bloody Sunday. And I remember really liking that song and really liking a lot of the music that Hillary made us listen to, but also feeling really strongly like I couldn't let her know that I liked it. Yeah.
Very fair. Yeah.
Just because, whatever she was into. I mean, in hindsight, for a long time there, you were kind of like my mom. That's a really good point. Aww. But we were never really close until our brother, the one in the middle, went away to school. He went away to college, and then that's when we became like buds.
So that's the thing, though. That was when you realized that
we were buds?
Yeah, I think we were always buds. You just didn't realize it until Will was gone. I was a grown-up, and you were a child, so believe me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But I also would, like, in my own defense, I've never been totally U2 absorbed in the car. I always had a mixtape going on. I never played, like, I mean, not often, maybe every so often I'd play a full album through, but most of the time I had all kinds of stuff going on. And I listened to the Beatles way more than I listen to U2. Always.
Fair. Except for The Long and Winding Road. We never got through that song.
You're going to hate that song. God damn it.
It's a really good song. I like that song.
So stupid. I don't even see the point of that song. Why does it even exist?
It's good. But to answer that question...
That's it. Go ahead.
To answer... your question, Jenny, I think growing up with our dad's the same way. I think I owe a lot of the deep emotional connection I have to music to Hillary, just because that was a priority for her, was being exposed to music, discovering music, listening to music a lot. And that's still how I live my life today. And, partly from our dad too, but I think mostly from Hillary, just because she was technically then, I guess, in hindsight, my mom for a long time.
Yeah. But we were buds. We used to do all kinds of stuff. I was friends with your friends, even though they were like way younger than me, and they probably thought I was a mom.
Well, you did look older then than you do now, so.
No, I think at that point I actually started to try to look younger around then. It was like middle school and high school that I tried to look old. At that point, I realized maybe I'm getting old and I should take it down. Remember that time I got you a pear?
I do remember that. And the time that I blackmailed you into giving me your copy of OK Computer.
Because I drank too much and I couldn't drive. And before I went out.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, I think I need you to drive me out. Jeremy's like, you got to give me something. And I never replaced it. And I have nothing Radiohead on my phone whatsoever.
Well, that's not my fault anymore.
No, it's not, but I'm proving a point. Okay, so Jeremy, well, tell us about your one U2 show. What were your moments? And I know the big moment, because you and Will have the same big moment, has nothing to do with
Oh,
U2, but
having a beer with my brother, which I
yeah,
don't think they.
Aw.
Yeah,
they had a beer together, and
I'm 40 now, but I was late into my 30s when we went to the show, and I don't think I'd ever shared a beer with my brother before.
Oh, that's really sweet.
We had a nice time.
and the three of us had never been to a concert together.
That's
I've been to
amazing.
concerts with both of my brothers, and I think my brothers have been to concerts together.
Yeah, I went to see Dave Matthews Band with Will on New Year's Eve at the Hampton Coliseum.
I was supposed to be there, but I ditched to go to Dublin.
Yeah, and that's why I went, because I never would have voluntarily gone to see Dave Matthews Band on New Year's Eve.
I
But
totally bailed on that show.
Was
yeah.
that the New Year's Eve in Dublin that I was at, or the one
No.
before?
That was New Year's 97,
98?
96, 97.
Oh, 96, 97, yeah. Oh, yeah, because I was there end of 96.
Yeah.
We should do that again. I'll answer the question, but yes, we all three of us need to do that again desperately for something. The big moments from that show, when it was a Joshua Tree show and when they started Where the Streets Have No Name, that I immediately became far more emotional than I thought I had the capacity to become in that type of situation. That was an amazing experience, and just everyone, there was just so much energy, and there were so many people. I've never seen a show even close to that scale before, and that was a magical experience I will remember forever, I'm sure. And I don't get teary-eyed often or easily. That's not true. Nowadays I do constantly, but back then I wasn't. I just got really emotional in a way that I wasn't expecting at all. It was great.
Yeah, it really bites ya.
I mean, I think the my emotional moment, I always have one emotional moment at a U2 show, but my moment there it was watching you when they came out to Sunday Bloody Sunday. And
Yeah.
it was, the look on Jeremy's face was like, oh, I forgot why I was here. And I mean,
Because we had been there for like 3 hours already.
Oh, like all the time, yeah.
yeah, but his mouth like opened, like it was just like, and like that look on his face was like, oh, I did cry. I
Yeah.
wanted to take a picture, but I couldn't get my shit together. I was so emotional. With Will, I didn't really give, because I think he's seen them 5 times, or like he's seen them on a good number, more than your average person goes to see U2
Yeah.
show.
I don't think it's common, at least for a lot of folks, to have that type of reaction in a totally unexpected way. Like if I'm gonna become emotional, I usually know that when I'm going to do the thing that's gonna make me emotional. I don't know what I expected to feel at that show, but what I felt was so much more than what I had anticipated, in a really terrific way. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you for bringing me. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
no problem. I'm still
I
paying
love
off that credit
that.
card. So another moment though that I remember from that show, and I don't know if you remember this at all, but I think it was In God's Country. We stood at the spot for
Yeah.
God's Country, which is how I knew that was an okay spot. Bono stood right in front of us, and Jeremy was, and I don't know if you even realized it, but Jeremy was like, oh shit. Like he literally, we were face to face.
Yeah.
Face to face. We were, but shoes
Close
to
enough.
face with
Yeah.
Bono, and he stood right there in front of us, and Jeremy's reaction was just like audible. And I think you did say it like, oh shit, like like that's that guy.
They know how to work a crowd.
Yeah. But also, I mean, for you to see your first U2 show like you saw it, like you can't touch that. Just where we were and everything, that you probably shouldn't go see him again. Just say,
Well, the 3 of us can go see somebody else.
no, we'll probably go see them again.
Yeah.
But it'll be a different, experience. Okay, so last question, Jeremy. If you had the opportunity to sit down and have whiskey and cake with Bono, what would you ask him? Or would you prefer to sit down and have whiskey and cake and conversation with another member of the band, which is okay too. We wouldn't. We choose not to do that. But
I wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't
but-
say no, but if I had the choice.
Yes, it would be
The
Bono.
Edge seems like he's a cool dude, though, right?
Are you kidding at this point?
Yeah.
Who? Edge?
The Edge.
Yeah, but we would have sake with him.
Oh, I
Sake and
got you.
pie.
This is whiskey and cake. Sake and sushi with the Edge, though. You know, I think I'd ask Bono a little bit. Just from a industry perspective, I guess I think it'd be interesting to get his take on his journey as the same questions I asked you guys, really. His journey as a member of a band and what he thinks their secret is to the amount of success they've had, why they've persisted. I would hope that I could get some more, have a conversation with him that would leave me feeling even more hopeful about what he thinks he can do to change the world. I would also like for more people to be able to change the world. I think the world needs a lot of change really, really fast. And if he feels like he's doing it, I would love to hear him talk about how he's doing that, what other things he could do, or what other things I could do, what other things he could do, what other things we're all doing. Because it just seems like there's so much work to do, and we don't get a lot of good news these days. But he seems hopeful, and you guys seem hopeful, and I hope to be hopeful too. So that's what I would ask him. Should I be more hopeful than I am right now, Bono?
I'm pretty sure he'd say
That's
yeah.
a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
I'm
we don't
also
have to.
assuming that,
We don't have to
he
answer
knows-
that question for this episode, right, Jenny? We've answered enough questions.
No, we don't have to answer
Yeah,
that question, and we don't have to ask him a question. Bono a question. This
I mean, that's
episode.
what I'm saying. Or we don't have
Oh,
to ask
would-
the
we don't
question.
have to-
What would we ask Bono? But that was a good
We
answer.
would just
too.
ask him, would he like some more whiskey?
Yes.
And
I
is
bet
he
you
gonna,
that he
and
drinks
is he going to
very
finish
nice
his
whiskey.
slice of cake?
And also
Right.
very good.
Well,
Are-
so
Are
we
you
have
going to
decided.
finish that?
Yeah, gonna eat that cake. Because
We
we're
went to the
still,
place
we've been you get food. We've been waiting outside for 20
Yeah.
years.
for 20 years.
Way more than that.
I'd also ask if he could help me with my student loan payments. That'd make me, a little bit more hopeful.
Okay.
You might just not want to flat out ask him that, but
Yeah.
Get a few
Say-
whiskeys in.
yeah, a few
Yeah, a
whiskeys
couple
in.
whiskeys
Say,
in.
man, I'd
Yeah,
love
I'll-
to go see you in concert more, but I have these student loans. But I'm well.
He might say, here's some tickets. Can't help with the loans, but here's some tickets.
much easier thing for him to accomplish.
Oh my
He
god.
can't even get free tickets.
No.
Here's a form you can fill out, and you don't have to pay the Ticketmaster fees. So that's
Oh, I
it.
have one
God
more
bless
question
him.
though. I
I'm
would
sure-
want to ask
I'm
him.
sure
I want
he
to ask
would.
him what's the best green room he's ever been in the world.
Ooh.
Well, they make their own green rooms these days, so
Or where they have like a trailer.
Depends on the venue, what they have
Yeah.
available. But I'm sure over the years there's been better accommodation. I mean, they ask for a space and certain items, but I'm sure
Well,
the
let me just say,
accommodations have changed.
in terms of a hospitality room, everyone's been to better hospitality rooms than we've been to on U2's dime. It's not anything to write home
Mm-mm.
about.
No. So I've been in 2 hospitality rooms. I've been in U2's and I've been in Dave Matthews. And Dave Matthews is like Buckingham Palace with a fridge of any drink you want and all the pirate's booty you could ever want to eat.
Uh-huh.
And there's curtains and drape, and it's beautiful. And U2's is like the rec center party room that they forgot to put the tablecloths down. And they grabbed some pretzels out of the back
M&M's.
because they forgot someone had to run to Costco real quick and get the pretzels.
Yeah.
And
It's not even like Chex Mix.
no,
It's like M&M's and pretzels.
and quirky
Not-
wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Unless you're in Dublin, that
Dublin's a different story. In my experience, the higher up room you get, the worse it is in U2
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Except in Dublin, that's a different
was
different game
Yeah.
entirely. I don't know. Noel Gallagher talks about how it's like their hospitality stuff is like the best stuff ever, and I'm just like, what room are you going to? Because
Well, he's like, I don't
I
think
know,
he's
but
hospitality. I think he's in like his own green room.
well, Well, I know, but I mean, I was one time in As Big as You Get U2 hospitality room, and it still was, and it was worse than the public one, than the big one. Like it was, I don't
It was
even
worse than the
know.
big rec room.
Yeah, like it was like a scrap of carpet and like, come on.
I mean, it is interesting, especially when they're at arenas, because these are sports venues.
Yeah.
So
They're
have to
gross and
they've got-
stinky.
I don't know, that Dave Matthews one, that was at Soldier Field. That was beautiful.
And I'm not, well, we went Virginia Beach. They had a little hospital, but it was outside. It was like a little park
Oh, yeah, that was cute.
for Dave Matthews. That was nice.
The one in Cleveland was beautiful, yeah.
Park outside, yeah. That said, I'm so honored, and I would go to, I go if their hospitality room was.
I'm not complaining, I'm just commenting.
No, commenting. It's interesting that.
I would go to them if they were in, like, at the dumpster in the back alley.
Right, but in the fanciest one there were no snacks.
Oh.
There wasn't even a bar. There was an attendant who would go get you a drink and come back an hour later.
Interesting.
Then you order 3 drinks and hope for the best. And then hope that the other people that ordered their drinks aren't going to drink them. So you drink all the drinks.
And are you going to finish that?
And then you become a smart ass and it all happens.
Well, thanks for answering all my questions.
Thank you for taking
Thanks for asking us.
And thanks for being a listener and a participant in our adventure.
We really
kept long-time listener, first-time caller, you know.
First-time caller. Yeah. Anyway, well, this was great. Thank you for listening, loyal listeners.
Yeah.
We will be back before you know it with an episode
Rattle and Hum
on Rattle and Hum, wish us luck.
Yes, it's gonna be fun. I think Rattle and Hum's gonna be tons of fun. It's just finding time to listen and watch the movie. But we're gonna be awesome.
I also feel like
we're gonna have fun.
It's not, I mean, obviously it's not a coincidence, but I still feel like we're in Joshua Tree mode.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been like 6 months that all we've been doing is Joshua Tree, whether it's actually the Joshua Tree or the tour, or now Rattle and Hum.
Rattle and Hum, yeah. Which is the Joshua Tree tour.
Yeah, so I will be very excited when we get to Acting Baby. I kind of want to start that now, but I have to do Rattle and Hum first.
You've got to make a workbook first.
That'll be easy.
Don't start the Acting Baby workbook until you finish your Rattle and Hum research.
I really want to. I want to go right into it right now, but I won't. I'll finish Rattle and Hum first.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Really beautiful workbook, though.
She does such a good job.
Thank you. The Rattle and Hum workbook, and this one took me 5 minutes today to do. The Rattle and Hum workbook literally took me a month to finish.
Well, it's very complicated. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of moving parts.
And then, like, I put on there just for our notes, like, not all the songs are original songs, and you have to put notes and then locations for the live songs and stuff. So it was quite a.
And some are on the album, and some are on the movie, and some are both.
Yeah.
So. Well, anyway, this was tons of fun. Thank you for joining us again, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a good time.
Yeah, we'll come up with more content in the future for you to participate.
Anytime.
Our other brother actually asked to participate in 2 different, very specific podcasts, which
one
really
we've already done.
Well, yeah, no, he wants to do pop, and then he wants to do one where we talk about our adventure in DC.
Because that'd be fun. He was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, and I feel like he'll maybe ground us a little bit. As he did that day.
At some point I forgot he was even there.
Can you imagine that, Jeremy? The first time we met Bono was with Will.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you can say about Will is he's very grounding most of the time when you need someone to be grounding. But then sometimes you don't need anyone to be grounding.
No, that's exactly right. We did kind of, no, not really, but I mean, there was a point where he wasn't grounded either. He was freaking out. It was we were. Yeah, that's a good story, and I think we need to rehearse it before we tell it, but Will really wanted to be, he was part of it.
That would be fun. Yeah.
That would be fun. Also, he has a totally different outlook on that than,
Oh my gosh, I would love to hear his version of that
yeah.
event.
Especially, when we were in that bar. God damn it.
God damn it.
We'll talk about that later.
Not to spoil the story, but this was in DC. I don't remember this.
You were in high school.
Yeah. Was it in a... Okay. I'll just wait for the episode.
She'll have to tell you later.
It was in 97. I'll tell you later. You don't have to wait for the episode, but we don't want to ruin it for listeners. But Will wanted to go to the show with me, and it was a big deal. Also, we had a rule where we'll talk more about it, but poor Will. He was a sport.
He was a good sport, and it paid off. Sport.
And he dealt with a lot that weekend.
I'm looking forward to that. I know some details, but not a whole lot.
I hope he still has that picture hanging up somewhere, because he's got a really good picture.
I'm sure he's got it. I have yours on my wall.
Oh.
You're on my wall of Bonos.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a wall of Bonos.
Mine just kind of evolved.
I should. I have enough to make a wall. I just don't have one.
It's a little crazy.
Wall. Yep. Okay. Well,
we should say goodnight.
Yes, we should. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you again this was wonderful.
Thanks for having me. Good night, guys.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night. Also, we love hearing from people and chatting with people, and of course, we love talking YouTube. So you can drop us a line on Instagram or Twitter at _gardentarts, or you can even email us at wearethegardentarts@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon. If you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you would share it with your other YouTube-loving friends, as well as leave a review for us on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts. We would really, really love that. May your music be loud and your whiskey be strong. Until next time, cheers.